I could have done no less, said Chill, circling up again to his side. So, because the boy, that is Mowgli, said the master word, so the kite said that, because he said that, I have to respect it. So I have informed you. And he went away. He has not forgotten to use his tongue, said Balu, with a chuckle of pride. To think that one so young remembering the master word for the birds too, while he was being pulled across the trees. That's great. It was most firmly driven into him, said Bagheera, because Balu had knocked him on the head. He knocked him on the head, so Mowgli remembered it. It was most firmly driven into him, said Bagheera. But I am proud of him. Now we must go to the cold lairs. They all knew where that place was, but few of the jungle people ever went there because what they called the cold lairs was an old deserted city lost and buried in the jungle. And beasts seldom use a place that men have once used. The wild boar will, but the hunting tribes do not. Besides, the monkeys lived there as much as they could be said to live anywhere. And no self-respecting animal would come within eyeshot of it, except in times of drought, when the half-ruined tanks and reservoirs held very little water. It is a half-night's journey at full speed, said Bagheera, and Balu looked very serious. I will go as fast as I can, he said anxiously. We dare not wait for you. Follow, Balu, we must go on the quick foot, Ka and I. So, feet or no feet, I can keep abreast of all of you, said Ka shortly. Balu made one effort to hurry, but had to sit down panting. And so they left him to come on later, while Bagheera hurried forward at the quick panther canter. Ka said nothing, but they made, strive as Bagheera might, the huge rock python held level with him. He went as fast as Bagheera. When they came to a hill terrain, Bagheera gained because he bounded across while Ka swam, his head and two of his neck clearing the water, but on level ground Ka made up the distance. By the broken log that freed me, said Bagheera, when twilight had fallen. Thou art no slow goer. I am hungry, said Ka. Besides, they called me speckled frog, worm, earthworm, and yellow to boot, said Balu. All one, let us go on, said Ka. He seemed to pour himself along the ground, finding the shortest road with his steady eyes and keeping to it. In the cold lairs, the monkey people were not thinking of Mowgli's friends at all. They had brought the boy to the lost city and were very pleased with themselves for the time Mowgli had never seen an Indian city before. And though this was almost a heap of ruins, it seemed a very wonderful and splendid place. Some king had built it long ago on a little hill. You could still trace the stone causeways that led up to the ruined gates, where the last splinters of wood hung on to the worn, rusted hinges. Trees had grown into and out of the walls. The battlements were tumbled down and decayed, and wild creepers hung out of the windows of the towers on the walls in bushy, hanging clumps. A great roofless palace crowned the hill, and the marble of the courtyards and the fountains was split and stained with red and green, and the very cobblestones in the courtyard where the king's elephants used to live had been thrust up and apart by grasses and young trees. From the palace, you could see the rows and rows of roofless houses that made up the city, looking like empty honeycombs filled with blackness. The shapeless block of stone that had been an idol in the square where four roads met, the pits and dimples at street corners where public wells once stood, and the shattered domes of temples with wild figs sprouting on their sides. The monkeys called the place their city and pretended to despise the jungle people, because they lived in the forest, and they never knew what the buildings were made for nor how to use them. They would sit in circles in the hall of the king's council chamber, and scratch for fleas and pretend to be men. Or they would run in and out of the roofless houses and collect pieces of plaster and old bricks in a corner and forget where they had hidden them, and fight and cry in scuffling crowds, and then break off to play up and down the terraces of the king's garden, where they would shake the rose trees and the oranges in sport to see the fruit and the flowers fall. They explored all these passages and the dark tunnels in the palace and the hundreds of little dark rooms, but they never remembered what they had seen and what they had not, and so drifted about in ones and twos or crowds, telling each other that they were doing as men did. They drank at the tanks and made the water all muddy, and then they fought over it, and then they would all rush together in mobs and shout, "There is no one in the jungle so wise and good and clever and strong and gentle as Bandar Log." Then all would begin again till they grew tired of the city and went back to the treetops, hoping that the jungle people would notice them. So that was how the Bandar Log lived. No organized behavior, no plan, no memory. Mowgli, who had been trained under the law of the jungle, did not like or understand this kind of life. The monkeys dragged him into the cold lairs late in the afternoon, and instead of going to sleep, as Mowgli would have done after a long journey, they joined hands and danced about and sang their foolish monkey songs. One of the monkeys made a speech and told his companions that Mowgli's capture marked a new thing in the history of Bandar Log, for Mowgli was going to show them how to weave sticks and canes together in a protection against the rain and cold. Mowgli picked up some creepers and began to work them in and out, and the monkeys tried to imitate. But in a few minutes, they lost interest and began to pull their friends' tails or jump up and down on all fours, scoffing. That is monkey behavior. "I wish to eat," said Mowgli. "I am a stranger in this part of the jungle. Bring me food or give me leave to hunt here." 20 or 30 monkeys bounded away to bring him nuts and wild pawpaws, but they fell to fighting on the road, and it was too much trouble to go back with what was left of the fruit. Mowgli was sore and angry as well as hungry, and he roamed through the empty city, giving the strangers hunting call from time to time. But no one answered him, and Mowgli felt that he had reached a very bad place indeed. All that Balu had said about the Bandar Log is true, he thought to himself. They have no law, no hunting call, no leaders, nothing but foolish words and the little picking thievish hands. So if I am starved or killed here, it will be on my own fault. But I must try to return to my own jungle. Balu will surely beat me, but that is better than chasing silly rose leaves with Bandar Log. No sooner had he walked to the city wall than the monkeys pulled him back, telling him that he did not know how happy he was, and pinching him to make him grateful. He, He set his teeth and said nothing, but went with the shouting monkeys to a terrace above the red sandstone reservoirs that were half full of rainwater. There was a ruined summer house of white marble in the center of the terrace, built for queens dead 100 years ago. The domed roof had half fallen in and blocked up the underground passage from the palace by which the queens used to enter, but the walls were made of screens of marble, tracy, beautiful, milk white fretwork set with angles and cornelians and jasper and lapis lazuli. As the moon came up behind the hill, it shone through the open work, casting shadows on the ground like black velvet embroidery. Sore, sleepy, and hungry as he was, Mowgli could not help laughing when the Bandar began, 20 at a time, to tell him how great and wise and strong and gentle they were, and how foolish he was to wish to leave them. We are great, we are free, we are wonderful, we are the most wonderful people in all the jungle. We all say so, and so it must be true, they said, shouted. Now, as you are the new listener and can carry our words back to the jungle people so that they may notice us in the future, we'll tell you all about our most excellent selves. Mowgli made no objection at all about our most, Mowgli made no objection, and the monkeys gathered by hundreds and hundreds on the terrace to listen to their own speakers, singing the praises of the Bandar Log. And whenever a speaker stopped for want of breath, they would all shout together, "This is true, this is true, we all say so." Mowgli nodded and blinked and said yes. And when they asked him a question, and he said, spun with the noise, "Tabaki, the jackal, must have bitten all these people," he said to himself. And now they have all gotten mad. So Tabaki is certainly this is Divani, the madness. Do they never go to sleep? Now there is a cloud coming in to cover the moon. If it were only big enough of a cloud, I might try to run away in the darkness, but I am tired. That same cloud was being watched by two good friends in the ruined ditch below the city wall. For Bagheera and Kaa, knowing well how dangerous the monkey people were in large numbers, did not wish to run any risks. The monkeys never fight unless they are 100 to 1, and few in the jungle care for those odds. I will go to the west wall, said Kaa, and come down swiftly down the slope of the ground in my favor. They will not throw themselves up on my back in their hundreds. But I know it, said Bagheera. Would that Balu were here, but we must do what we can. When that cloud covers the moon, I shall go to the terrace. They hold some sort of council there over the boy. Good hunting, said Kaa, grimly, and glided away to the west wall. That happened to be the least ruined of any, and the big snake was delayed a while before he could find a way up the stones. The cloud hid the moon, and as Mowgli wondered what would come next, he heard Bagheera's light feet on the terrace. The Black Panther had raced up the slope almost without a sound and was striking. He knew better than to waste time in biting. He was striking right and left among the monkeys, who were seated around Mowgli in circles, 50 and 60 deep. There was a howl of fright and rage, and then as Bagheera tripped on the rolling, kicking bodies beneath him, a monkey shouted, "There is only one here. Kill, kill." A scuffling mass of monkeys biting, snatching, tearing and pulling closed over Bagheera, while 5 or 6 laid hold of Mowgli. dragged him up the wall of the summer house, and pushed him through the hole of the broken dome. A man-trained boy would have been badly burned, bruised, for the fall was a good 15 feet. But Mowgli fell as Balu had taught him to fall and landed on his feet. "Stay here," shouted the monkeys. "But we have killed your friends, and later we'll play with you if the poison people leave you alive." "We be of one blood, you and I," said Mowgli, quickly giving the snake's call. He could hear rustling and hissing in the rubbish all around him, and gave the call a second time to make sure. Even so, down hoods all, and half a dozen low voices. Every ruin in India comes sooner or later a dwelling place for snakes, and the old summer house was alive with cobras. "Stand still, little brother, for your feet may do us harm." Mowgli stood as quietly as he could, peering through the open work and listening to the furious din of the fight around the Black Panther, the yells and chatterings and scufflings, and Bagheera's deep hoarse cough as he hacked and bugged and twisted and plunged under the heaps of his enemies. For the first time since he was born, Bagheera was fighting for his life. Balu must be at hand. Bagheera would not have come alone, Mowgli thought. And then he called aloud, To the tank, Bagheera! Roll to the water tank! Roll and plunge! Get to the water!" Bagheera heard, and the cry that told him Mowgli was safe gave him new courage. He worked his way desperately, inch by inch, straight for the reservoirs, hitting in silence. Then from the ruined wall nearest the jungle rose up the rumbling war shout of Balu. The old bear had done his best, but he could not come before Bagheera, he shouted. "I am here. I climb, I haste. However, these stones slip under my feet. Wait my coming, O most infamous Bandarlog." He panted up the terrace, only to disappear to the head in a wave of monkeys. But he threw himself squarely on his haunches and, spreading out his forepaws, hugged as many as he could, and then began to hit them with a regular bat, like the flapping strokes of a paddle wheel. A crash and a splash told Mowgli that Bagheera had fought his way to the tank, and where the monkeys could not follow him. The panther lay gasping for breath, his head just out of water, while the monkeys stood 3 deep on the red steps, dancing up and down with rage. Oh, nice fighting scene. ready to spring upon him from all sides if he came out to help Balu. It was then that Bagheera lifted up his dripping chin and in despair gave the snake's call for protection. "We be of one blood, you and I," for he believed that Kaa had turned tail at the last minute. Even Balu had half smothered under the monkeys on the edge of the terrace, could not help chuckling as he heard the Black Panther asking Kaa for help. Kaa had only just worked his way over the west wall, landing with the wrench that dislodged a coping stone into the ditch. He had no intention of losing any advantage of the ground, and coiled and uncoiled himself once or twice to be sure that every foot of his long body was in working order. All that while, the fight with the Balu went on, and the monkeys yelled in the tank around Bagheera, and Mang the bat, flying to and fro, carried the news of the great battle over the jungle till even Hathi, the wild elephant, trumpeted, and far away scattered bands of the monkey folk woke and came leaping along the tree tops to help their comrades in the cold lairs. And the noise of the fight roused all the daybirds for miles around. Then Kaa came straight, quickly, and anxious to kill. The fighting strength of a python is in the driving blow of his head, backed by all the strength and weight of his body. If you can imagine a lance or a battering ram or a hammer weighing nearly half a ton, driven by a cool, quiet mind living in the handle of it, you can imagine what Kaa was like when he fought. A python 4 or 5 feet long could knock a man down if he hits